Is Matzah Shabbos, Sunday. We're catching up the Amud from Shabbos that we covered yesterday afternoon. For those that weren't able to make it, we are on Samach Daled Amud Aleph, and this is the Amud for the second day of the month of Kislev. We are on Samach Daled Amud Aleph. We are 10-ish lines from the bottom, from the top of the page. First one on the line is Maseches, and we are quoting from the Mishnah. Continuing, where the Mishnah told us that Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that a person that eats, a person that is bringing the Korban Pesach while owning chametz has violated the Isur of loy sishchat or loy sizbach. We'll see both psukim. Al chametz dam zivchi. And not just Korban Pesach, which was the opinion of the Tanna Kama, but Rabbi Yehuda holds that even the Korban HaTamid, if a person were to bring the Korban Tamid, the Kohen that brings the Korban Tamid, while owning chametz, being in the possession of chametz, they would be in violation of this issur. Says the Gemara, quoting Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Afa Tamid. My time of Rabbi Yehuda, what is the reason for Rabbi Yehuda? Shita Amalacha, he says to us, Zivchi. Pasuk says, Lo shishchat al chametz dam zivchi. The word zivchi there is interesting because we don't have that word anywhere else referring to the korbanos. What does it mean? My zevach means zevach hamiyuchad li, the zevach that belongs to me. Which what exactly is the zevach that belongs to me? So here the Rishonim and Achronim point out that the pasuk says as karbani lachmi leishai reach nechid tishmeru. The karbani lachmi leishai. That is in reference to Kodesh Baruch Hu's korbanos. The korban tamid is karbani lachmi. It belongs to me, and therefore zivchi is zevach hamiyuchad li. My nihu. What is the special korban that is only for Hashem? That is the korban hatamid. And therefore, the pasuk could just have said zevach instead, since it says zivchi. It tells you that it means the korban hatamid as well. Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah told us, "Hapesach ba'ar ba'asa." If a person were to shecht the korban pesach on the 14th day of the month of Nisan in the possession and the ownership of chametz, they would have violated the isur. What happens if? And this was Rabbi Shimon's case. Rabbi Shimon in the Mishnah had told us. The Andaf Samech Gimel Amud Beis Amud Aleph. The Mishnah told us, according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon Omer HaPesach Ba'ar Ba'asar Lishmai, that if you shecht the Korban Pesach on the 14th of Nisan for its sake, meaning as a Korban Pesach, that's what you'd be chayiv. And Shalal Lishmai, that if you did it Shalal Lishmai, meaning as a shlamim, then you would be potter. Another Gemara is going to try to ascertain what exactly is the rationale behind Rabbi Shimon's opinion. Rabbi Shimon, my time of the Rabbi Shimon, what is Rabbi Shimon's rationale here? He says, the pasuk says, with regards to the issur of chametz and Korban Pesach, is loy sishchat al zivchi, al chametz al zivchi, and loy sizbach al chametz dam zivchi. There are two psukim in Shmos in the 23rd parak and in the 34th parak. You have this pasuk, almost the same pasuk twice, both of them discussing the issur of having Pesach, having chametz while shechting the Korban Pesach, and it says zivchi twice. You don't need that in order to teach you this din. Therefore, says Rabbi Shimon, zivchi trei zimni. It says it twice. Kari bei zevach, which means we should read it, the first one as zevach, and the second one as zivchayai, as my korbanos. Meaning the first one is just talking about zevach. Don't have Korban Pesach with chametz. That's zevach. What is zivchayai? The other korbanos. Lemay hilchasa. What exactly would this din teach you? Says Reb Shimon, Palgin Rachmane mehadadi. The Torah is separating these two halachas. V'lo yikasav zivchayai, and doesn't say my sacrifices. Doesn't say that you shouldn't have chametz while bringing my sacrifices, which tells you when there is the zevach, meaning during the time of Korban Pesach, then there is no isur of having another korban in the possession of chametz. That isur doesn't exist. Bisman deleka zevach, if there is no zevach, then mechayiv aziv chayai. Then you would be chayiv for shechting the Korban Pesach at any other point in time with chametz in your possession. Says the continuation of the Mishnah, Uvamayed lishmai pater, and if you would shech the Korban Pesach during Pesach, lishmai as a Korban Pesach, in such a case, you would be pater. Says the Gemara. Hold on a second. What's the implication here? Taima, the reason that you'd be pater is the loy lishmai, is that you shechted it without intending that it should be a Korban Pesach. Hastama pater. What does that sound like? It sounds like if you would simply have decided that you wanted to shech this Korban Pesach on Chol Hamoed, then you would be pater. Why would you decide to do such a thing? It means that you picked an animal. You said, this shepsel is going to be my Korban Pesach. Good, excellent. And then it disappeared. Oh my gosh, who packed the sheep? I don't know. You packed the sheep. No, I have no idea where the sheep went. Excellent. We'll have to get another sheep. And then all of a sudden, oh, gewalt, we just realized we put the sheep in the other bag. Meaning, you lost the sheep, now you found the sheep, and now it's in the middle of Chol Hamoed. What do you do now? So, yeah, you already decided it's going to be a korban. You're going to bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. It sounds, and it sounds like, this is the implication, is time, the reason that you'd be pater is, lishmai pater, if you would have shechted it lishmai, as a Korban Pesach, then you said, I'm bringing this Korban Pesach, then you would be pater, meaning then it's not a korban, because then there would be no isur of having chametz with it. But the shaloi lishmai, if it would be, if you would say that it's the lo lishmai, then you'd be chayv, meaning as a shlamim. Hastama pater. It sounds like if you didn't say anything, you just brought this to the Beis HaMikdash in the middle of Chol Hamoed Pesach, this korban that was supposed to be a Korban Pesach, and now it's turned into Korban Shlamim. It sounds like you'd be pater. Amai, why would you be pater? Pesach b'shayim asashana shlamim have. Pesach, all the other days of the year, is called a shlamim. It defaults to a shlamim. So why would you be pater? Says the Gemara, Shemat mina Pesach b'shayim asashana by Akira. It sounds like our Mishnah is teaching us that a Korban Pesach any other day of the year needs to have Akira, means it needs to be uprooted from its status of Korban Pesach. Somebody needs to say, this is a shlamim. But the default seems to be that it remains a Pesach until somebody changes that status. Amar B'chia Bar Gamda says, B'chia Bar Gamda Nizukah Mibia Chabura. It was thrown out from the mouth of the Chabura, meaning everybody in the Chabura decided that this is the correct way of looking at the din. For Amran, they said, no, that's not correct. What the Mishnah is talking about here is not if you lost the sheep and then you found the sheep, and now you want to bring it as a shlamim. No, it's that you had the sheep on Erev Pesach, and then just as you're about to get to the Beis HaMikdash, one of the owners says, "Oy gewalt, I'm a tummy mace. I'm a tummy mace. I can't bring the sheep now. I'm not chayiv in Korban Pesach any longer, but I still have the sheep." What happens to the sheep? So it doesn't default to a shlamim in this case because nidachim le Pesach Sheni. There's still Pesach Sheni on the 14th day of the month of Iyar. He could bring this, and therefore, the stam l'shum Pesach kai, in such a case, a stam sheep that was supposed to be a Korban Pesach, that you knew where it was and you're still planning on using it for a Korban Pesach in a month's time, that sheep would not default to a shlamim, and that's where it would need Akira to say that this is a shlam, if you wanted to pick another sheep to use later. Okay, now we have a very long Mishnah that goes on to the next Amud. L'chaim. Coffee. There we go. Says the Mishnah as follows: HaPesach nishchat b'shalosh kitas. The Korban Pesach was shechted in 3 groups. Shenema, the pasuk says, the pasuk tells us, v'shachatu osai kol kahal adas Yisrael. The Mishnah tells us that there were 3 groups that brought they bring the Korban Pesach in 3 groups, and we learn that the remnants in the pasuk for this is kahal and Eda and Yisrael. All 3 of those words mean the same thing. Sounds like what we are saying is that you bring the Korban Pesach in 3 groups. Nichnas al Kasher Shaina, the first group goes into the Azara, Nismala Azara, and the entirety of the Beis HaMikdash is filled up. The whole court of the Beis HaMikdash is filled up. Now Ludaltas Azara, they lock the doors of the Azara. Taku Heiriu V'Taku, they would sound the Chatzos, they would sound the Tekiah, and then a Trua, and then a Tekiah. HaKahanim Omdim Shura Shuras, and the Kahanim would stand in long rows. Uvidem beziche kesef, uveziche zahav, and in the hands would be these cups of silver and cups of gold. And it says the Mishnah, Shuru Shakula Kesef, a row which was silver, it was entirely silver, and Vishura Shakula Zav, and a row of Kanim that they were holding gold, the whole row was gold. Loi Hayu Ma'ravim, and it didn't get mixed up. Machlokes and Achronim. Does that mean that the rows went interspersed as well? Meaning that you didn't have a gold row and a silver row and a gold row and a silver row? Or maybe it meant that you could have alternating rows, but you couldn't mingle them up. Okay. But either which way, all of this is for aesthetic purposes, because it doesn't look nice to have gold and silver intermixed. To have a whole gold row and a whole silver row, that looks beautiful. And the bazich and the cups didn't have these basins that collected the blood. They didn't have shulaim. They didn't have flat bottoms. Why? Shema yenichum, so that you shouldn't put it down. V'karish adam, and then the blood would congeal. You found this didn't. Whenever you have Kabbalah Saddam in the Beis Hamikdash, is where they would collect the blood, would not have a base, so that you shouldn't ever be able to put it down. You definitely don't want it to spill, but even if you put it down for 1 second, maybe you forget. Something happens, and then all of a sudden you've lost that dam, and the whole carbon is not is possible because you didn't do Zirkat Saddam. How does it work? Shachad Yisrael, we mentioned yesterday that or Erev Shabbos that Yisrael is allowed to shech the Korban Pesach. Shachad Yisrael. If Yisrael wants to, you can check the Korban Pesach. If we keep the Kohen has to do Kabbalah Saddam. He has to receive the blood in this in the bazichin, in the basin. And the Kohen gives it to his friend. And his friend to his friend. And they receive the full one. So it was a very rapid conveyor belt of passing full ones one way and passing empty ones the other way. Machzer is Rekan. Kohen HaKarev Etzel Mizbeach, and the Kohen that is close to the Mizbeach, Zakr Zrika Achas Keneged Yisod. He would throw it with one Zrika. He would throw that the whole bazich, the whole cup, against the Yisod of Mizbeach, meaning the Mizbeach had a step. So you had the flat wall of the Mizbeach, and then at the bottom there was a step that was called the Yisod of Mizbeach, and the Kohen would throw the blood onto the wall and it would drip down onto the Yisod. Yatsa Kasha Shaina, once the first group had gone out, Nichnas HaKashnia, the second group entered. Yatsa Shnia, the second group exited, and Nichnas HaShlishis, the third group entered. Gemasa Rishon Kachmas HaShnia Vishlishis, in the same way that they did for the first round, they did for the second and third round as well. And now we're going back to what they did in each of these rounds. Karu es HaHalel, they would read out the Halel. They would sing Halel. Im Gomru, and if they finished the Halel Shana, they did it again. V'im Shanu, and if they managed to finish Halal twice in one round, one rotation of Korban Pesach, so V'im Shanu Shilshu, they would do it a third time. Says the Mishnah, however, but they could have, but it never ever happened. Never happened that they got to a third time round. Why? Because Kohanim, the Kohanim got the job done quickly. But technically, yeah, you would keep on saying Halal. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Mimem shel kash lishis." In all of the days that there was a kash lishis, lo higiu la'ahavti ki yishma Hashem. They never got so far as to more than 2 paragraphs into the Halal to ahavti ki yishma Hashem kali. They never managed to get to the third paragraph of Halal because there were very few people in that third round. Meaning they got through the karbanos very quickly because everybody was rushing. It's Erev Pesach. You wanted to make sure that you got your karban brought to the Beis Hamikdash as soon as possible. It was only the last group that the stragglers at the end, so there weren't so many of them. So that was done very quickly. The same way that it was done during the week. So they would do it on Shabbos. Ella, there was one difference. That the Kohanim washed the floors of the Hazara. And the Chacham disagreed. They did not think that was proper, and we'll see in the Gemara what exactly the machlokes is. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kais hayam memale dam hatarevis." The kais, there was a cup that was filled with all of the mixture of the blood that was that ran together, meaning all of the stuff that spilled out. So they would collect up all the blood, and they throw all of that onto the mizbech. The Chacham didn't agree to Rabbi Yehuda that they said that was inappropriate, and we'll see what the reason is for that in the Gemara as well. Then the Gemara wants to know, how would they? The Mishnah asks, how would they string up and skin to flay the karbanos? So unkulias shel barzal yekuvim b'kadim ba'amudim. shebehem talim avshitin. They had these hooks that were made out of steel, iron, that they had in the walls of the Beis Hamikdash and of the Azara all the way around, and you would hang up your korban on these hooks, and then you'd be able to pull off the skin. And says the Mishnah, "Kol mi she'ein lo makom l'tlas l'avshit." What if it was packed? There was no room for anybody to do it. So maklas dakin v'chalakim ha'yusham. They had these thin, smooth sticks that were there. Meniach al ktefa. You put it on your shoulder, v'al katav chaver on your friend's shoulder, v'tolo mavshit, and then you could hang from there. You would be able to make a makeshift wall and hook using poles and your friend's shoulders. And Be'ezhem Yisbarach, we will continue with the rest of the Mishnah, going on to Samach Dal Amud Beis Be'ezhem Yisbarach in the next Shir Be'ezhem Yisbarach a little bit later this evening. We should have a wonderful day, and we will see you, please God, later. A good Shavua Tov.